Welcome back to Urban Enigma. Tonight we dive into 4 terrifying stories that all share one chilling detail. They took place on Friday the 13th. These stories are filled with unsolved mysteries, eerie paranormal encounters, and unexplainable events. Each tale is soaked in blood, fear, and darkness, so dim the lights and settle in, because these real-life horrors will haunt you long after the story ends. Story 1. The unsolved murder of Thomas Willett, June 13th, 1975. It was a warm Friday evening in June 1975 when Thomas Willett, a well-respected 42-year-old businessman in Iowa, was found brutally murdered in his own home. The scene was nightmarish. Thomas was tied to a wooden chair in his living room, his throat slashed deeply as though the killer had wanted to ensure he bled out slowly. Blood soaked the carpet, pooling in a dark crimson lake beneath his feet. But that wasn't the worst part. Willett's body was marked with strange symbols, carved into his chest and arms. These symbols seemed ancient, almost ritualistic, as if they were left behind as part of some dark offering. Investigators were at a loss. The marks didn't match anything from known cults or rituals. The entire house had been ransacked, but nothing valuable was taken. No money, no jewelry, no electronics. It was as if the killer wanted only one thing: Thomas's blood. And then the eerie part. There were no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, no hair, no footprints, nothing. Whoever committed this gruesome act had done so with meticulous precision, as though they'd vanished into thin air. Some neighbors reported seeing strange lights in the sky that night, and a few even claimed to have heard low-frequency hums reverberating through the neighborhood. Local legends began swirling about a connection to extraterrestrial activity, but the case remains cold. No leads, no suspects, just the memory of a brutal murder and the chilling reminder that sometimes evil can strike without leaving a trace. Story 2. The Curse of Room 13 at the Langham Hotel, October 13th, 1922. London's Langham Hotel is known for its opulence and historic charm, but it hides a much darker side, a curse that has plagued Room 13 for over a century. On Friday, October 13th, 1922, a young man named Robert Dale checked into the hotel. A travelling salesman, Dale was used to life on the road, and there was nothing particularly strange about his stay, until the night of his death. At 3 a.m., a ghostly glow emanated from under the door of room 13. Guests in the nearby rooms awoke to the sound of agonizing screams, blood-curdling cries for help. The staff rushed to Dale's room, but the door was bolted from the inside. After forcing it open, what they found inside shocked them to their core. Robert Dale's lifeless body was sprawled across the floor, his face frozen in a look of utter terror. His hands were clawed at his own throat, as if he had been strangled, yet there were no signs of anyone else in the room. The walls were smeared with blood, but there was no clear source of injury. The room looked as if a violent struggle had taken place, but Dale's body showed no external trauma. The most chilling detail was that his bed was untouched, as if he hadn't even been lying there before the attack. And yet a faint, sulphuric smell lingered in the air, something not of this world. Rumours began to spread that the hotel had been built on cursed land, and that a malevolent spirit haunted room 13, attacking any unlucky soul who dared stay there on Friday the 13th. Despite repeated exorcisms and renovations, room 13 remains sealed to this day, untouched and avoided by even the bravest staff. Story 3. The Black Friday plane crash, October 13, 1972. On October 13, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 was carrying 45 passengers. most of them members of a rugby team, when tragedy struck. The plane crashed deep into the frozen Andes Mountains. The wreckage was torn apart, strewn across the snowy terrain like a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. 29 passengers initially survived the impact, but their ordeal was only beginning. Stranded in the bitter cold with little food and no way of knowing if rescue would come, the survivors quickly found themselves at death's door. But the true horror began when they realized their only means of survival was to eat the bodies of their dead friends. With starvation setting in, they made the unthinkable decision to resort to cannibalism. As if that wasn't grim enough, those who survived spoke of strange events in the days following the crash. Late at night, they heard whispers carried on the icy wind, disembodied voices calling their names, pleading for help. Some even claimed to see shadowy figures moving between the snowbanks, figures that weren't their fellow survivors. One man, Nando Parado, reported seeing what looked like a ghostly silhouette standing at the edge of the wreckage, just watching him. He swore it wasn't one of the dead, but something else, something waiting for them to die. It wasn't long after this that they were finally rescued, though only 16 of the original 45 passengers survived. The survivors still claim to be haunted by those terrible weeks in the Andes, not just by the memory of their actions, but by the feeling that something unnatural was there with them, lingering in the snow, watching. Story 4. The unexplained disappearance of the Hayward family, August 13th, 1999. Friday the 13th, in August 1999, began as a normal day for the Hayward family, Mark, his wife Linda, and their 2 children, Emma and Jake. They lived in a quiet, rural part of Michigan, far removed from the chaos of city life. But by that evening, their quiet life would descend into a nightmare. That night, neighbors reported seeing strange lights above the Hayward house. What looked like flickering orange orbs hovered in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the home. No one thought much of it, just a strange atmospheric phenomenon, they assumed. But when the Haywards didn't show up for a planned family event the next day, relatives went to check on them. What they found was beyond terrifying. The house was eerily silent, but it didn't look abandoned. The dinner table was set, as if the family had been about to sit down for a meal. The TV was on, playing static, and the family's car was still parked in the driveway. But the Haywards were gone, vanished without a trace. The walls of the living room were marked with strange symbols burned into the wood as though seared by an invisible flame. These symbols didn't match anything known to investigators and looked ancient, perhaps pagan in origin. A search of the nearby woods turned up nothing. In the following weeks, strange sightings were reported near the Hayward house. Shadowy figures moving in the darkness, strange noises, and that same eerie glow seen on the night they disappeared. Despite an intensive investigation, no trace of the family has ever been found. To this day, their disappearance remains a haunting mystery. Friday the 13th has long been feared as a day when the barriers between our world and the unknown grow thin. From unsolved murders to mysterious disappearances and paranormal horrors, these true stories remind us that even the most rational minds can't explain everything. Join us next time on Urban Enigma for more spine-tingling stories that blur the lines between reality and nightmare. But remember, the darkest mysteries may not always stay in the shadows. Stay safe and stay vigilant.